Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Skipbound, and this is the Top 5 Weekly, where we run down our favorite movies or whatever the topic may be that week. Best actor, best director, or, best actress. Just our top 5 of whatever genres or actor or director or whoever. And with me this evening is my 2 cohorts in crime, Mr. Andrew Cabral. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, everyone. Back here once again. This week, we are talking heist movies in honor of Baby Driver, directed by Edgar Wright. And we're all going to have our little take on the movie because I assume we've all seen it. I know I was looking forward to seeing it. And heist movies, you don't realize how many of them you've actually watched until you have to do a show like this. And you also don't realize how many movies are considered heist movies and that you didn't even think were heist movies. So this is going to be an interesting show. Hopefully there's not too much overlap with our lists, but inevitably there probably is. And I blame Dan for that, just because I think he looks at my list somehow. He's probably a computer hacker for all I know. He's Mr. Robot. He's Mr. Robot.
I got a camera in your light above you right now.
I hope you don't, Dan. I hope you don't.
That's creepier. That was creepier than what he already had established.
All right. I don't have a camera in your house. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm just joking. And we have Mr. Stephen Billings.
Yeah, it's me back again. I don't know why I keep coming back here. Why do I keep coming back, guys? I don't know why. You guys are crazy, especially Dan, who keeps like, oh, I got 7 on my list. No, it's Top 5 Weekly, Dan. Top 5.
I know. I narrowed it down to 5 in my head. I just have 6 on my paper. So I have to take one of those 6 off. Oh, man. Yeah, Baby Driver. We were all looking forward to seeing this film. So I accidentally thought we were doing this list last week, but we had to do it this week because this is when Baby Driver came out. So with that being said, let's get into it. Top 5 heist movies, and we'll start this week with Andrew Cabral.
Okay, let me get my list. Okay, number 5 on my list is a film I've talked about probably a few times before, and that is Ocean's 11. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's immensely rewatchable. It has an incredible cast of people in it, including George Clooney, Brad Pitt, the late Bernie Mac. It also has Carl Reiner is in it. Elliot Gould is in it, I believe. It's just an incredible heist movie because there's so much happening in it that you have to really be engaged because there's so much like side things happening and the plan is so elaborate. For those of you who haven't seen it, basically George Clooney is an ex-con. He's a thief. He is a really kind of intelligent person who has a mind for these things. And he decides he's going to rob a casino. And not only rob a casino, but rob kind of one of the bigger casinos that's like impossible to rob. And he decides to pull this off with all of the different people he gets involved in it. And I just think it's immensely rewatchable, despite if you know all the twists and turns. I find myself constantly going back to it. I'm one of those people who don't think that this film actually needed any sequels to it. The sequels aren't as good as the original, which tends to be the case in a lot of franchises. I'm not sure if they're going to make a 4th film in the franchise, but all I know is that the first one is Where You Go. It's also a remake of an older film starring the Rat Pack, like Dean Martin and all those guys, but this film is definitely a great modern take on the whole story. I definitely recommend it to people.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Ocean's 11, absolute great film. And, you didn't even mention Julia Roberts, Matt Damon, people like that. Scott Conner.
Casey Affleck's in the movie. I mean, how many Oscar nominees / winners are in this movie?
Don Cheadle's in there, Casey Affleck. I mean, it's just a phenomenal cast. Who knew Steven Soderbergh knew how to cast a film way back when this thing came out back in the day, early 2000s, I believe it came out. All right, Stephen, you are up next.
Yes, I am. My number 5 is one that I saw not too long ago, and I just thought this was a really beautiful film, and it was a film from a director that you know, you don't see a lot from him in this genre. He's more known for his suspense, horror kind of stuff, and that is Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief. This one it's just a very, like, the big thing about this movie is it's just beautiful. It's stunning. Like, it's one of his best shot films. I think a lot of it is it's shot on location. You know, a lot of his movies are known for the rear projections and stuff like that. This one's shot on location. It's beautiful. You got Cary Grant, you got Grace Kelly, one of the best team ups right there. Like, just having them two in one movie together is awesome. Grace Kelly is just, I think, maybe the most beautiful woman I've ever seen on screen. You know, this film is about a cat burglar played by Cary Grant, and then he's kind of almost framed for a robbery that he didn't do this robbery, and now he's trying to you know, exonerate himself by finding out who actually did it, and he's got Grace Kelly to come and help him find out, you know, and it's got a twist ending. It's really a good movie. I don't know that it's the deepest or any, you know, the most psychological of all his movies, but it's really well made, and it's delightful.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you can't go wrong with any Hitchcock film. He's handled so many different genres in his career, so it goes to figure that he did a heist film as well. You know, this has been a tough list for me because like Andrew said, there's so many great heist films. You don't realize until you have to look up and make a list of 5 that there are so many great films, and there's so many little indie heist films, and there's so many blockbuster heist films. And you know, Baby Driver, of course, is why we're doing this list. And so I decided to put a little unknown. Maybe you guys have heard of it, but when it came out in 2007, I just was blown away by what a great film this was. And it wasn't getting a lot of buzz. It wasn't getting a lot of publicity, but it made my top 10 list at the end of the year because it was just such a good indie gem, and it has a lot of great performances. It's called The Lookout, and it stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jeff Bridges, Isla Fisher, Matthew Good, Carla Gugino, and it's directed by a guy by the name of Gary Frank. And this is just a really interesting take on the heist film. I know this is going to sound weird right now, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a character by the name of Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt, believe it or not. And he's an athlete. He's a star athlete, and he gets hurt, and he can't perform the way he was, and his whole career is ruined. He becomes a custodian in a bank, and these guys that he grew up with try to convince him to rob this bank. And it is such a good film. If you have not heard of this film, The Lookout, I recommend you go see this film or seek it out. This is where Joseph Gordon-Levitt really started coming into his own out of the child actor star type of thing, where he was a child actor for so many years with Third Rock from the Sun, I should say, not 30 Rock. Third Rock from the Sun, and then he started doing these indie movies, and now we know him as this big movie star. But this is one of the first ones that got him to where he started getting into acting. Brick and this and so forth are 2 of the earlier movies that he did that he started getting into becoming a movie star. So I have The Lookout at number 5. And we're going to go back to Andrew with number 4.
My number 4 is a film I've talked about before, and everybody knows it. It is Michael Mann's Heat from 1995. While this film is probably not remembered as a heist film, the kind of climax of the film is a bank heist, is a bank robbery, and it is impeccably well shot. There's so many things happening in it, but the best part of this film is Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, the battle of wills that they have in this film. Al Pacino plays the cop. Robert De Niro plays a thief or a criminal, if you will. And there's just this incredible battle of wills throughout this entire film. There's an incredible diner scene that is, referenced so many times in other films. And it is a really one of Michael Mann's best films, probably his best film. Another film of his that literally could be a heist film is Thief. So Thief and Heat kind of go hand in hand to one another. But I'm not breaking the rules here because I'm not putting Thief at here. So I'm not being a cheater. But I'll just say that Michael Mann likes to do kind of heist movies. You know what I mean? He really likes, I guess, the parameters around it or the nuances around it, and he directs the heck out of those movies in those situations. Great cinematography, great directing. Watch Heat if you haven't. It's probably a modern classic. It's only about 22 years old, so it's definitely almost in that classic range. We're not quite, I don't know if we've gotten to the point where 1990s movies are considered classics, but when we do, Heat is going to be one of them.
Yeah, it's not that far back to be considered a classic yet. Yes, I would say 70s right now is considered classics. Once you get into like the 2020s, maybe you would say 80s would be classics. You give it about 30 years for a classic. You know, cars are considered vintage after 25, 30 years. So I would say classics would be about a 30-year time span. So I would say 70s right now, 80s, you know, in the next decade, 90s in the decade after that. So, yeah, that's a absolutely great film, Andrew. Great pick at number 4. Steven, you're up next.
My number 4 is one that I think, you know, is a very interesting heist film. It's not really a very direct, you know, it's not very direct on its heist. It's more of about the aftermath of its heist, and that is Reservoir Dogs. You know, it's, you know, Quentin Tarantino's opening film, and he comes out with a bang. You know, you got these guys, all their names are colors. You know, it's weird. You know, all guys in suits, and they, you know, you don't really see the heist. You see the heist through flashbacks, but then this movie basically takes place in just a warehouse where they're supposed to meet after things go down, and it's just a very intense, very well acted, very well directed film, and it's a movie that's stood the test of, you know, it's almost basically a classic too, kind of in the heat, in like Heat. You know, it's about around that. It's a little bit older than Heat, but it's a movie that's really defined. It defined the '90s for a while there. You know, it influenced a lot of films. That, and of course, Tarantino's next film, Pulp Fiction. So it's, you know, not only being a great heist film, but just a great film in general that influenced a lot of people. And Harvey Keitel, you know, Tim Roth, you know, just a lot of great actors in it. Even Tarantino himself is in the film. Not a great actor, but he's okay. Steve Buscemi, I love Steve Buscemi in this film. It's just a must see, especially if you're a film fan in general, but also if you're a Tarantino fan, you got to see it.
Yeah, it was the first, I believe it's the first directorial debut of Quentin Tarantino. He wrote True Romance, but he did not direct it. And he directed this as his first film. So that's a good way to come out of the box. A lot of the great filmmakers have that great film that they came out of the box with, and then they go off and running after that. My number 4 is a little film called it's directed by Ben Affleck and stars Ben Affleck and stars Casey, not Casey, but Jeremy Renner and Blake Lively, John Hamm, Chris Cooper's in here. It's called The Town. And everybody knows I'm a huge Boston Red Sox fan, and I'm a huge Boston front runner for everything, and with the hat and everything. And how could I not love The Town? I mean, I'd be completely ostracized from being a Boston fan completely if I said I didn't like The Town. This is a phenomenal film, and of course, my favorite Boston Red Sox is right at the center of it. There's a giant heist towards the end of the movie where they're actually robbing Fenway Park, which was great. I love that. You know, Peter Postlethwaite, he says, we're going to take down the Cathedral of Boston. And that, what a great actor he is. I mean, he has since passed away after doing The Town, but he is a, man, I love that actor. But there's so many great scenes in this movie. But the main thing is, it's also got Rebecca Hall in there, is that these guys know their town and they're robbing the town that they love and the town that they come from. And it's just such a kind of a gritty movie about like these guys that know where they come from and they know what their backgrounds are. They know their fathers and they know their relatives. And they know their, one of their fathers is in jail and one of their fathers is dead. And they're not trying to shy away from who they are as people, and they keep doing these bank jobs and armored car jobs. But the town, oh man, this is a fantastic, fantastic film. So I had to have it on my list of top 5 heist films. All right, so we have reached the point of the show where we're going to talk about Baby Driver. Andrew, take it away.
Baby Driver, the newest film from Edgar Wright, someone whom have always been a fan of. Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, the third film in the trilogy, the end of
At World's End.
At World's End. Scott Pilgrim, which is a film I fell in love with, and this new film of his is a great inclusion in his lexicon, in my opinion. The filmmaking in this film is just amazing. I think the editing, the cinematography, the way everything is just put together is incredible when it comes to the car chase sequences. The casting is, of course, really strong as well. Ansel Elgort, which I'm probably mispronouncing that name, but he's kind of not someone I'm familiar with because I haven't seen The Fault in Our Stars or other stuff he's been in. But I thought he was good in this movie, considering he had to carry this whole movie and also be the main focal point on which the story is centered around. Everything in this film has to do with him and what is happening with him in his life. You also have other great actors in here like Kevin Spacey, who's a world-class actor. Jamie Foxx, John Hamm is in here as well. Lily James, who plays the love interest in the film, I thought was incredibly charming when she was on screen. But yeah, this is a really fun, great kind of indie film that takes a lot from past films in this genre and really kind of puts a whole new twist on it. And the music, the soundtrack of this film is a huge part, and it is a great soundtrack. It is just fantastically well used in the film to give the film a great rhythm throughout. I know I really liked it. Curious what these guys thought.
Steven?
If you haven't seen my rapid reaction, you know that I just freaking love this movie. And as Andrew said, the soundtrack, and the thing that's interesting about the soundtrack is, the first time I've only seen it the one time, but I looking back, the soundtrack, as much as it was good, it didn't overwhelm the movie. You know what I mean? Like it didn't. And this isn't a bad thing. I can't sit here and think about really many of the songs in the movie because it is so integrated into the film that it's there and it's part of it. It's organic. So it's not like the song is not what I remember about scenes. It's the actions happening, because it was so melded into the movie, and it's just interesting. You'll see when you see the movie how they use the music, and it kind of makes me sweat thinking about how they put this together, like how they did this. I mean, I would assume I don't want to spoil it, but it just seems like it had to have been like a process to really film this film and use the music the way they used it. But guys, this movie, you have to see it. I mean, it doesn't even feel like an indie film, really. I mean, it feels like it's a movie that somebody would go spend $100 million on, which I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but I feel like anybody else would have went and spent a bunch of money on a movie like this when somebody like Edgar Wright can make this movie for a lot less because he's that good. And he's just a very unique voice in our film going experience today, and he needs to be rewarded because this guy keeps making these great films, and you guys are not seeing it. Go out and watch the damn movie. Pay your money to go see the movie. Don't rip it off the online, cheat. Like, go pay for the movie and stop paying to see Transformers and shit like that. Go pay and watch Baby Driver. It is awesome. Dan, finish it off.
Yeah, I mean, these guys said so much already. One of the things I love about it, we talked about car chases on our Fast and the Furious 8 episode, but wow, what some amazing car chases in this film. The cast, I mean, you got Ansel Elgort, John Hamm, Jamie Foxx, Kevin Spacey. You got cameos by John Bernthal, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Lily James, you might know her from Cinderella and the Zombies, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and Downton Abbey. She was on that. Great cast, absolutely great music, and like these guys said, the music goes hand in hand with everything that goes on in the film. And I think Baby Driver is such a great film. It may actually stand the test of time and be around come Oscar time. I don't know for sure, but it's got such critical acclaim right now that you never know if this film could stick around for the long haul. We had a couple films from this time of year last year that kind of got a little bit of love. Hell or High Water, and a couple others that Kubo and the Two Strings had some Zootopia. So we had a few films that had some legs last year. So you never know. Baby Driver might have some legs. Yeah, I actually absolutely love this film, just like these guys. I didn't want to spoil it because I saw it, a week early from everybody else. So I just was like keeping my mouth shut. But the word was getting out. So I put my review out early, just like everybody else did. I'm sorry about that, guys, but I told all these guys, don't watch my review. Don't watch my review. But you can watch it now, guys. Go and watch my review now. But, yeah, Baby Driver, it's a success. Everybody loves it. I might go see it again. You never know. We'll see. All right, so we're getting back to the heist movies. Andrew, what is your number 3 heist film?
Number 3 is The Usual Suspects, which was directed by Bryan Singer. I believe it was his first film. Another film from 1995, along with Heat, which is very, very interesting. I didn't plan that. It just happened. But The Usual Suspects is a film, yet again, with a great cast. You have Gabriel Byrne, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak, Kevin Spacey, even Giancarlo Esposito, who no one knew who he was at the time. And even these other actors were kind of unknowns. Kevin Spacey really was an unknown, and he is incredible in this film. I won't give away the 20-year-old spoiler, even though it's probably been spoiled for you on the internet over and over again. But this film is basically a bunch of these criminals just kind of end up meeting in prison, and they decide to get together and pull off some heists and stuff like that. I don't really want to spoil it for you, but it's a great film. It is probably one of the best films of the 90s. I know it got some critical love at the time. It won 2 Oscars. I believe it won for Best Screenplay, and it won Kevin Spacey an Oscar as well. Yeah, it's a great film. I highly recommend that to anybody. You can watch it over and over again. I find myself going back to it despite knowing the twists and turns and stuff like that.
Another good pick by Andrew. Steven, you're up next.
My number 3 is another a little bit more unconventional heist film. One that I just felt was just such a masterful film. And the director, I don't know that I would consider this his best film, but I find it to be his most ambitious all around, thing he's done. And that is Christopher Nolan's Inception. This movie is it might not be them going after anything. There's no money they're going after really or anything like that. This movie is about going into people's dreams and typically in most fashions extracting something. But our main plot is about planting an idea in somebody's head. And, in a way that doesn't seem like, oh, Steven, that's not a true heist. Yeah, but the setup for this movie is a heist movie. You got your main guy, you got Leonardo DiCaprio, and he puts together this team of people with certain sets of skills to then go and do a job. You got Ellen Page, who is the architect. You got Tom Hardy in there, who is the guy that can switch, can kind of be he can switch his appearance and play anybody. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in there. It's just such an ambitious movie that when it came out, nobody had seen anything like it. I mean, it was crazy. And it's, to me, like I said, I always say Memento is Christopher Nolan's best movie all around. But his most ambitious, and like the movie I think will probably keep him remembered for a very long time to come, is Inception, because it's an amazing movie.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. When I was looking up my top 5 heist movies, and I was like, they have Inception on the list of heist movies, and I thought to myself, oh yeah, there's a lot of elements of a heist movie in here. You know, you're thinking about the dreams and all that kind of stuff, but the beginning of the movie is a conceptual heist movie. And so I absolutely agree that if you're going to have a top 5 heist movies, Inception's one of the greatest ones of all time. You know, so it makes sense that one of us would have had Inception on their list. All right, my number 3 is a film that Steven already mentioned, Reservoir Dogs. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, first directorial movie. It's, you know, Steven said so much about this film, but it has like Tim Roth, Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, Quentin Tarantino, Harvey Keitel. What a great cast he has assembled for this movie. And it's, you know, it's like we don't know where all these characters are at the beginning of the movie. And so as the movie goes on and on and on, you find out what this character did and who did this and how this character survived and how that character didn't survive and so forth. Then there's this character, I can't think of what color Michael Madsen is. I think he's brown. I think he might be brown, Mr. Brown. But he has this like scene in the film where he is interrogating somebody, and he's got this song that is one of my favorite songs now. And every time I hear that song, I think of Reservoir Dogs and Michael Madsen, because he's just like dancing around. He's just interrogating this guy in this kind of like a barn. I think it's like a barn or something like that there, or like a warehouse or something like that. But yeah, it doesn't have a lot of special effects. It doesn't show a lot of like Hollywood stuff. It just has a lot of great dialogue, but you know that everything is coming off of a heist that these guys performed, and they're all going to meet at this spot, and they all show up one by one, except for somebody doesn't show up, and then there's a mystery of like who killed this person or whatever, you know. So Reservoir Dogs is a fun movie, and it doesn't take itself too seriously either, and so you can really enjoy it for what it is and not try to overanalyze it either. You know, it's a fun movie, and that's why I have it on my list at number 3. All right, Andrew, number 2, starting down to get to the nitty gritty. But your list has been phenomenal already. You've already had a crazy list.
Yeah, I already. It's about to get crazier. So my number 2 is an older film, and by older film, we're talking from 1950. I'm going way back. Get in your time machines, and I'm going to go with a film called The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. This is a great classic film. It's kind of it's like part noir, part, you know, heist movie. Basically, the premise is that this guy who is he is a thief. He recently gets out of jail, but he wants to do a big heist, and he wants to do this $1 million jewel heist. And he gets all of these kind of crooks together to build this team. But what ends up happening is complications ensue while they're doing the heist, and then afterwards, things like greed and deception, and, you know, people screwing over other people tends to happen. But this is a great film, and this film is extremely well known for being very technically savvy when it comes to pulling off a heist like this. Like, they really show you how to do it kind of properly back then. with the safe cracking and all this kind of stuff. But it is a great film. I recommend it for cinephiles. I recommend it for anybody. It's an awesome film. John Huston was one of the all-time great American directors. The father of Angelica Houston. He did many films, and The Asphalt Jungle is one of his best film amongst his greats.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've not seen it. I'm definitely going to have to see that now that you have brought it up. I saw the list of I have kind of a basis of a list that I usually go by because I have things in my mind that I know of, but then my mind has holes in it. So I go back to a list and I say, okay, and I said Asphalt Jungle. I never heard of that before, and so I was glad to see that you had that on your list. And then that's a film that I'm going to definitely have to watch before too long. I've watched so many classics, but there are a few that I have missed. So thanks for bringing that to the forefront, Andrew. Steven, what is your number 2?
Yeah, and also with the Asphalt Jungle, you can get on Criterion Collection.
You can. Also, I forgot to mention that it has an early role from Marilyn Monroe, and she has a great scene in this film. So for those of you who are fans of her and you're completist, you have to watch the film now.
Yeah, Asphalt Jungle is like it's credited for being one of the heist film that really brought along the cliches of heist films with gathering the team together and stuff like that, and how they, it is like kind of like one of the founding father heist films, definitely. But my number 2 is one I've talked about before. I think we did it back in the Keanu Reeves episode. This is just one of these movies that I don't care what anybody says, I will defend it. It is a good movie, not just part of its time. It is a good movie. It's directed by Catherine Bigelow, who we know is awesome, and that's Point Break. Ex-presidents, all I have to say is, I am an FBI agent. And you know what I'm talking about. Johnny Utah, you got Gary Busey, that crazy son of a bitch is in the movie, just running around out of breath all the time. But, guys, Patrick Swayze, this dude is Bodhi, and he is just so magnetic in this film. He's so awesome in this movie. You got Johnny Utah, Keanu Reeves. He is a FBI agent, as I said, and he is looking. They're investigating with Gary Busey to find the ex-presidents who have been robbing these banks. And Gary Busey has this wild idea that the ex-presidents are surfers, and nobody believes him. But Keanu Reeves is like, I'm gonna hang out with this crazy dude, and then we're gonna see what happens. He goes undercover with the guys, kind of starts to become their friends. It's a great film. It's got some really cool action scenes. You got skydiving. They tried to remake it recently. It was god-awful puke fest. Like they couldn't, I don't know what they were thinking. You can't match the charisma of a Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze with like some relatively unknown actors. Come on, guys. But yeah, it's a must. To me, it's a must see. You need to watch Point Break. It's came out in '91, but it's basically an '80s movie. So check it out.
Yeah, that basically capped off a phenomenal decade for your boy. What? Come on, not Keanu Reeves, but
Patrick Swayze.
If you go back and look at his decade of the '80s and then ending with that film, what a phenomenal decade of films that he had. You put that decade together with any actor in the history of acting. He's not the most dramatic actor, but he really had a hell of a run there for about 10 years. And Ghost. When was Ghost? When did Ghost come out? That had to be.
It came out after, I think.
Okay.
Ghost was one of his last. Actually, you know what? Ghost came before.
Yeah.
Before that. Yeah. That's
my thought. That's the same, man. He had a phenomenal decade there. My film, my number 2 is a film that Andrew already mentioned. It's called Heat. It's just an absolute masterpiece of filmmaking, in my opinion. Michael Mann's basic coming out party as far as big motion picture storytelling, actors. It's also kind of like a love letter to like Los Angeles in a lot of ways. It shows so many different locations in Los Angeles. diners and railway yards and construction sites and police and downtown and highways and all this kinds of stuff in the film. I mean, what an amazing, amazing cast. Andrew already mentioned Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, but you got like people like Michael T. Williamson. You know him from Forrest Gump. You have Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, Ashley Judd, Dennis Haysbert, Machete himself, Danny Trejo, Wes Studi. I mean, but you know, the thing about this is it's a heist movie. It starts out with a heist, and these guys are doing different jobs, but they put the intelligence into what they do. But what it also is like a family film, because in a way you're dealing with the outside the job, outside the police office job, outside the being a bank robber job. You're dealing with the relationships, the wives and the husbands and the children. We got Natalie Portman plays the little girl in here, and she's got some emotional scenes with some of those things involving Al Pacino. And then you get Ashley Judd, who's like, you know, she wants more money. She wants Val Kilmer to get her more money, and then she starts messing around with Hank Azaria, who's in here. I mean, it's just like a phenomenal cast. I mean, you tell me a movie that has a better cast than this. I mean, looking back, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, I mean, it's a phenomenal cast. I mean, you could take that actor, say, you know him from this, that actor, you know him from that actor, you know him from that, and so forth. I mean, it's a phenomenal cast. But Michael Mann, he really sets his films in reality, and that's one of the things. This film could have taken place in the actual time that it was filmed and it came out. You know, that's what I love about Michael Mann films. They're just realistic films, and in the story in this one is very realistic. I mean, anybody could be involved in this kind of a story, whether you're a police officer, or if you're a criminal, or if you're just a normal person on the street. You could be involved in something like this. There was so many moving parts to this film, and that's why it's such a great film. And you know, it's not a film that's a short film. It's a very long film, but you're glued to the screen no matter how many times I watch it. I could watch it from beginning to end and never take my eyes off it. It is so great. But of course, it's anchored by the performance of Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. They have two amazing scenes in the film, and that's why you always hear people, oh, we never get a chance to see Pacino and De Niro and Scorsese and all these guys work together. They rarely have worked together. De Niro was in The Godfather Part 2, but he never worked with Al Pacino. This is the first time they actually worked together, and they were great in the diner scene and then in a scene later on in the film. So I had to have Heat as on my top 5 heist films at number 2. Let's go to Andrew again, and you're at number 1, Andrew.
Okay, my number 1, once again, I'm going off book. I'm going way back in time to 1955 with a French film called Rififi, which is directed by Jules Dassin. And this film is set in Paris. It has a very similar plot to the film I just mentioned, The Asphalt Jungle, where basically this guy who is an ex-jewel thief, he gets out of prison, but he reassembles a small, like 14 group to pull off this big heist at this big Paris jewelry store. And it's kind of like an impossible heist, if you will. And this is the film I kind of alluded to in the last film, but it's this film where there is an actual like a half-hour sequence of them pulling off this heist, and it's in complete silence. There's no musical score. There's no real sound other than them, you know, doing all the stuff you do during a break-in, during a heist, which is very interesting when it comes to style, and also interesting that people actually in real life bank robbers mimicked the actions of this sequence to actual rob places in real life, which kind of blows my mind, because you always hear about like copycats and stuff like that, but this film is that kind of influential outside of just filmmaking and the film industry. But Jules Dassin was someone who was blacklisted by during the whole blacklisting of all the people in Hollywood who they thought were communists and all this nonsense, and he was kind of excommunicated from Hollywood, and he didn't make a film for years until he made Rififi in Paris, and it is known as like a masterpiece. of his work, and it just shows that like the whole blacklisting was basically just a fear-mongering witch hunt, because these people were actual really amazing individuals who could do just great work. And this is yet again, I'm going into my classic roots here, so it's going off book. Maybe a lot of you haven't seen this, but it is a French film. There are subtitles, and similar to the Asphalt Jungle, you know, people tend to be very greedy when there's a lot of money at stake, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of betrayal, and that seems to happen in a lot of heist movies, not just the ones we're talking about. But before I go on for too long, this is a great film. This is, when I was making my list, this was like, this has to be number one. I was blown away when I first saw it, and I continued to tell people to watch this movie because it's fantastic. I think I've told Steven to watch it too. I don't know if he's taken my advice. He only listens to about half the things I say in life, but whatever.
Well, that's better than me. He never listens to anything I say. But there's another film, Andrew. I'm gonna have to put it on my list of films to watch. I have not seen that film, and like I said before, it is on the list of heist films. I'm like, what is Rififi? And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, what is this? And so it's another film that I have to watch. You stunned me with two films that I have not seen on your list, and that's always a surprise to me when you guys do these lists and you put something that I haven't seen, because it makes me want to go out and watch this film. Because one of the reasons why you two are on here with me is because we have similar sensibilities when it comes to movies, but we also have very different sensibilities when it comes to movies, and we all have different likes and dislikes. And so that's why I love it when I get to hear you guys talk about different things, because you guys sometimes surprise me. And so I'm glad you got a chance to talk about those two last films, Andrew. Now, Steven, you're up next. What's your number one?
And Rififi is on my list of movies to buy in the Criterion sale, so I will be getting it soon to watch. It's not that I haven't wanted to watch it. I'm just like, I'll wait to buy the Criterion to watch it, because what's the best way to watch classic films is not through Criterion. I mean, and then I can watch the special features and shit. But my number one, you guys have talked about it a bunch, you son of a bitches. It's Heat. To me, when I think heist film, it is the first movie that comes into my mind. Michael Mann is a director that knows how to direct cool. Like, everybody's cool in his movies. Like, the bad guys are cool. Like we talked about Collateral before. Tom Cruise has never been as cool as he is in that movie. Like, it's the characters in Heat, no matter how bad or good they are, they're all just they're just cool. You know, everybody's just badass. It's just a movie that, just defines the genre. I mean, it really is. I mean, to me, it is what Rififi and what Asphalt Jungle is of heist films of that time. This is like that next step of great heist films in a more modern context, and it's the one that just continues to be one that everybody talks about when they talk about heist films. I can't say too much more that these guys haven't already said. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. I mean, it's just amazing to see these two heavyweights just going back and forth on each other, specifically, of course, in that diner scene. And, it's just a movie, like Dan said, I can watch. It is like a 3-hour movie. And when I got that new edition, the definitive edition that just recently came out, I sat down and watched it. And I was like, God, this movie is just awesome. This is, and I mean, I could watch it again right now, even though it's 3 hours long. I could watch it again right now. That's how good this movie is. And I mean, it was definitely my number one. As soon as we said we were going to do this, it was definite. So number one, Heat. Check it out.
Yeah, it does show our similar nature of film loving, and then because we all we know the great films. All three of us know the great film, but then we all have our little niches of what we like and what we don't like. So that makes our list fun to go down, because you never know what one of us is going to have. Sometimes we have the same movie, but what are you going to do? And with that being said, another movie that Andrew talked about that I got as my number one, Andrew did it to me again, I had to do it. I just love this film so much. The Usual Suspects. I absolutely freaking love this film, and I mean, what a great cast. I mean, you just can't say enough about how just every little piece, every little nook and cranny of this movie just fits together, and it makes you. You know, the thing is, you can watch it over and over and over and still not see every little detail, every little thing. You know, and Kevin Spacey, he anchors this film. Chaz Palminteri, Dan Hedaya. I mean, if you don't know who Dan Hedaya, he's in The Hurricane. Chaz Palminteri. I mean, what a great performance in this film he gives, along with Kevin Spacey, because they're playing this game of cat and mouse together in this police interrogation room or his office or whatever. And it's just like, oh my God. And then you see in this story unfold through the narration of Verbal Kint, played by Kevin Spacey. And, you know, Kevin Pock, Benicio del Toro, Gabriel Byrne, Stephen Baldwin. These guys are just such, I mean, they are all perfect in this movie, playing off of each other, doing their little part to make this film a perfect film. Once again, I got Mr. Postlethwaite's in here. That's 2 movies on my list with Postlethwaite on there. He died, you know, recently. So these are the 2 movies I remember with him in it that are absolutely phenomenal. I got him down here in my notes, but I just I love it. Bryan Singer, this guy, you know, he hasn't done anything like this except for like Valkyrie, but Valkyrie's not really like this, but it's kind of like a heist movie in a way. Well, it's assassination, I guess. Yeah, it's not really a heist movie, but he hasn't really done anything like this since. I would love to see Bryan Singer do something like this again and get out of the you know, the comic book genre and get into doing. I know he's doing a remake of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and he's doing the biopic of Freddie Mercury, the Queen biopic. But I'd like to see him do something like this, go back to his roots and do something crazy like this again, because something like this has never been done since. Never done before, never been done since. I don't think there's any movie that you could say, yeah, this movie is like The Usual Suspects, because there really isn't a movie like The Usual Suspects, and that's what makes it such a great movie. And you know, when people talk about like the best 100 movies, the list of like the 100 greatest movies, I would definitely put a couple of the movies on mine and Andrew's list on there. Heat and Usual Suspects are 2 of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. And it just tells you that modern films can be great. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. Newer films can still be great, and that's the case with The Usual Suspects and Heat. And like Andrew said, they both came out the same year. So that's another little thing about those 2 films, that my number 1 and number 2 films of heist films both came out the same year, in 1995. But that is our list. We'll go quickly through some honorable mentions. There's so many that we could choose from. Andrew, you got any honorable mentions?
Yeah, anything that anyone else said that I didn't, pretty much, you know, Inception, Reservoir Dogs, The Town are all great heist movies. One I want to highlight, The Killing, which is one of Stanley Kubrick's early films, is a heist movie that takes place around a horse racing track. It's a really, really good film. I mean, there's so many. Jackie Brown, The Sting. I mean, even Die Hard, there's a heist in there, if you will. Freaking Hans Gruber's trying to pull off a heist. But yeah, there's so many of them. I don't want to take up more time. Go, Steven.
Steven, got any?
Yeah, I mean, you've said most of them. There's one that is like a very interesting one. It's called Dead Presidents. The Hughes brothers. It's a very interesting heist crime type of film. But yeah, I mean, you guys have said most of that. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I got a few on my list of honorable mentions here. Of course, I had Ocean's 11, The Italian Job, Dog Day Afternoon, Snatch, The Score, The Thomas Crown Affair, Ronin, and The Sting. So, you know, The Thomas Crown Affair is a remake the Italian Job is a remake, but so if you want to see either of those, there's 2 versions of those. The Sting, like Andrew said, is an absolute classic. The Score is a newer version, a newer movie, but it's a good little heist movie with a couple great acting performances in it as well. But all right, so that is it. In honor of Baby Driver, that is our top 5 heist films. Glad to have these guys. Really had great lists this time around. I had a feeling this episode was going to be a fun one because we had so many great films to choose from, and we got to share some films that hopefully people did not know. Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
Steven?
You can find my channel on YouTube, Film Club Central. We have an Instagram, Twitter, Facebook page, and we do a lot of stuff. We do reviews, and we got a new sketch comedy thing we're going to start back up again called Showbiz. So watch out for that.
And you can find me at Dan Skipal on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also at From the Fourth Row. I do a podcast with my co-host, Mr. Vincent Laspada, called The Best Damn Movie Show. We just put the very first episode on the YouTube channel, The Best Damn Movie Show YouTube channel. So we're going to start doing that in the future. Also, these guys and myself do a little we do a little special series called The 52 Must-See Movies and Why They Matter. I think we've done close to 15 episodes, and we've got like a few episodes in the can. So stay tuned. We got a special episode coming out on the 4th of July. Stay tuned for that one. And we're going to be doing more of those because these guys love talking about these classic movies, and so do I. So it's one of those things that, it's a joy for all of us. So for Andrew and Steven and myself, good night.